down there?
They took it out.
So are they going to move that?
I don't know.
Okay.
All right, we'll call the work session to order. Use this time to discuss anything of interest on the agenda tonight. Anybody have anything they'd like to talk about a little early to get some things discussed before the regular meeting? If not, then we'll have a very quick work session. Nothing? All right.
So talk amongst yourselves.
Reports or anything else from any committee meetings or?
I'll talk to you about the Citizens Financial Advisory Committee for a few minutes. They are a group of about 15 people, regular attendees. Others seem to come and go, but they have sort of developed from a discussion group to an action group. And as of the last meeting, they took on 4 tasks that they would like to research and report to the city government on. So they'll be in to see us at some point. But those 4 things, if I can remember correctly, are further adjustments to the budget that perhaps we don't see. I don't know about you guys, but when I open the budget and look at it, sometimes my eyes glaze over, and it's difficult to see opportunities. So one group wants to do that. Another group wants to do volunteerism as a way to augment city services, and that can be such things as establishing a police auxiliary type activity, or to help with beautification. And that reminds me, Becky, I gave them your name as someone who's had a lot of success in that.
Actually, no. The success is on the part of myself and people close to me. It's always been very difficult to get people to be committed. Dale does work, but we had a group early on, and so those are very big challenges, believe me. And one of the things with beautification that we had difficulty with is that everyone had the expectation that the city should have to pay for anything that got done in terms of flowers and so forth. And I used to constantly have to tell them, no, the city is not going to pay this. If you choose to do this, you do this. So volunteerism is hit or miss, and that's just a standard. These days, people know that. People are busy. But Dale, you're aware of that too.
Yeah. And the Battle of Plattsburgh, I think, is evidence of that too. We used to have a group of volunteers, and then it came to the city. But
one member of this committee put together a volunteer program in the city of Portland, Oregon. And she and her husband have since moved to Plattsburgh and live here now. And she's eager to get back into that sort of thing. But the thing she's lacking is local knowledge. And they thought that you would be a good resource, Becky and Dale, or any of us really, in our past volunteer experiences. And I think that's true.
I'd be happy to be a resource.
It sounds like if this they sound really engaged and kind of excited and have good energy. Maybe they could get together with Sandra. This is not the best week, but being that she controls the social media, to be able to potentially use their excitement to maybe encourage other people. There's been so much great press recently about your committee and all the good work that's happening. And I really think we could use social media and the website to maybe start to engage people. So maybe she could meet with Sandra, and they could find some strategies on how to get the word out to get people engaged in the different areas.
Good idea.
Really good idea.
Josh. Now that I mentioned there were 4 things. The third thing that they want to work on is revenue enhancements. One of the gentlemen there is a retired business person, and he strongly believes that there are many opportunities for revenue. He's also interested in jobs. He says that jobs will cure a lot of ills. So I'm interested to see what his group can do. By the way, they divided into groups, and they now have subcommittees, and they're going to work on these tasks. And the fourth and final task that we're working on now is that media and get out the message kind of thing. And it's not just to report on what they're doing, it's to report on city financial condition, what are some of the challenges, what are some of the opportunities, and try to take that message out to the entire city. They encouraged us again to start up the ward forum process, and they said they would love to come and participate in that. So
I think that was 3 things.
Yeah.
3 things? That was 3 things.
Volunteerism,
volunteerism,
police auxiliary,
budget adjustments,
Revenue
revenue enhancement,
and
media.
media.
Guess I was looking for some more.
Why not?
It sounds like they'll come up with
Given enough time, they'll probably hit everything that there is to hit. They're a really excited and engaged group, and I think we'll see good things from them. One of the things that one of them said, and then I'll be done, is that they would like to see the city government engage in more strategic planning. And we all know that's in our hearts and minds, and we've certainly started that process in the past. But I think in next year's 5-year plan, that should not just be numbers on a spreadsheet. That should be some actual goals. And we should work with the department heads to come up with those goals and actually have those on paper. And then let that advise the numbers. So I thought that was a good idea.
Absolutely. Anybody else have any reports?
Not I.
I guess we can talk amongst ourselves.
Yeah, talk amongst us.
25 minutes.
They are. Or not talk amongst ourselves.
Yeah, it's possible.
Well, yes, that's a subset of the revenue, not revenue. Yeah, revenue and budget adjustments.
Saturday, I'm like, I think I should need some more water.
Yeah. Well, they're gonna, let's see what other cities are doing with that and see what the opportunities are.
And so they were supposed to, so there was
My take on it, Joe, is that we should, the city should have it all.
Mudfest.
We should have
On
it
Tuesday, they had a
because it makes
and I
money
could hear them
to
out
make
there.
even more.
And then I go in the kitchen and I hear more crew show up. And the boss man came and said, they got to leave. And I said, yeah, I know I do. So they started digging. They actually found
I don't know. Does anybody know at one time did the city have an exclusive garbage service? So could we
So
go
I
back
was
to
just like,
that?
I am not gonna, I'm not even
But it
gonna
would be
worry
a
about it.
battle. It'd be a battle. Yeah.
I would
I don't know,
They're gonna
did
do
we
that
have,
this
do we have a contract with Casella and the other haulers to do? hauling?
No.
I think it's a license.
Yeah.
That's where they framed it.
The thing about making it a monopoly is that then that would lower the rates. If you're picking up every house on the street, that's way more efficient than picking up this guy and driving down. And that's what happens now.
That's the path besides that.
We can't do commercial, that's the problem. We don't have the equipment.
Is behind the garage.
That's right. The school district had wanted to know if we could do, they were gonna do.
Yeah, I was just like, I'm not gonna bring up this.
No, because you need it for a dumpster.
Again, if we had a monopoly, then we could do it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Let's get out.
It's not like there used to be
Yep, they're gonna close it. I'm closing it, and then I'm gonna go to
That's another thing.
Well, on the flip side, we don't want to enable Casella to have it.
Maybe we could sell the franchise to Casella. And you could say to them, you keep the rates here for 5
That's
years.
it in the summer.
And then here's our customer.
Yep.
We renegotiate in 5 years and you give us this amount of money each year. We'd be out of the garbage business and then be in it big time. It doesn't make sense to me to have all these small little haulers and then the two big ones. Somebody should just have it all. Yep, this guy right here has said many times, on any given day, you'll see a garbage truck on your street. Because hauler A comes on Monday, hauler B comes on Tuesday.
And when we have one Casella customer in our block, about 5:30.
Yeah,
Oh, must be Wednesday. Yeah, it's like, and the urgency that they arrive in, it's just like the drama.
They get solar.
Oh, yeah.
Talking about the zero I wish we could do that.
You know,
It's not,
We can do it. They just
Mike has a pretty well thought out position about their restrictions about our recycling collection
you don't see this tool.
so that they can preserve their zero.
This guy complained against.
I did hear that.
I never complained against him.
Well, I think I'm the only counselor on panel here that does zero sort, just because I had to weigh my allegiance to the city and my allegiance to the planet. And I just, you know, I mean, my garbage is that much.
Where's your allegiance to your union?
My union?
Teachers union?
Yeah.
Casella's not the union.
I
They're not
think,
union.
yeah, I know, that's another tough decision.
oh, definitely.
The next day he's got the city.
So I understand you're Skyping with my son today?
Yeah, so I got his one customer out of shame.
As I said to him, it'll be something he'll remember the rest of his life.
Until it goes away.
Maybe as a factor in negotiating with them to take our customers, we should require that they do composting, like Burlington does.
He will sooner or later, but the first day he was out there walking around the perimeter.
How on energy earth friendly is that? I mean, they're hauling stuff
Like sending chickens
And
to
yesterday he was out there,
Yeah.
there was water. I mean, one
chickens
slip
have
and
more
he's
mileage than my
falls in the tub.
I've never done all my cars ever had. I mean, yeah, so they send it to
trying to put my chicken in.
That's a good bumper sticker.
Right.
Yeah. And who knows where it goes after that? I have no idea. But
If
if
there is a subcommittee
Yeah, I
that
went to Lowe's
decides to work on that,
Are there a lot of people?
invited Bob
Was there a lot of people from
to be
here
part
still
of the
down there?
committee
or-
to investigate that.
Oh,
So
oh.
I didn't bring him into your family.
Oh, wow.
Because remember, he did that presentation to the council last year, advocating the sale of garbage.
It'd just be really good research and see what is the
Exactly. Yeah, don't go into it with a, decision up front.
you sell it to the city.
And I would probably have my rotation next Tuesday, so I don't know what it is.
Haulers who are feeding their families with money.
No, I mean, you're in effect just adding to that big fleet,
Where I grew up, we had a city and it was part of your city. They did the entire city, they picked up leaves in the fall.
I gotta show you that. But wouldn't it be exciting to know how much you could remove from the waste stream by doing that?
You could. And as far as I know,
Lester Williams, alive and well on West Street. Very
I don't know
nice.
how
Good
they
for
do
you.
it in Burlington, but
Yeah.
Max likes it.
as it is, I've got a kid
Oh,
from
wow.
church who comes by. He's got a 5-gallon pail.
A lot for my cat.
Apparently.
The biggest water bowl.
And he doesn't even pick, I'll even pick
Our
up
cat
my
used to
dog.
drink from the pool.
As long as I, have it
At the old
contained
house we
in
did.
that, and it's disgusting. So you don't put it in plastic, I put it in,
Well, I can see it from my
Paper
house
bag.
because it was right next door.
I pick it up,
So
pick it up with paper.
I miss it for the grandsons because they would
In
have
a
liked
big
it, I'm
paper
sure.
bag for him.
you put your leaves in,
Well, you don't put your away from it. You know, I didn't think I could stand looking at it.
would you put your leaves in?
How big's the upkeep?
I do when I've got any matter that I pick up in my yard.
Oh, it is, okay.
Like in my bag.
See, if I would have had, because we had to have a reline because we was getting old. I wanted it level before the food.
I'm practically
Because it was
perfect.
it was the deepest pool that George Hubble ever put. 9
I am.
the deepest.
Yeah, I actually
So-
wanted 8 because I wanted to die. And it's true, they went down 8 feet and they hit
And I'm
water
gonna get it.
right away.
Well, I don't know how they didn't hit water.
Don't
It's
hit it.
wrong all foot.
So I'm gonna have to be
It was
extra.
George's first pool because when we bought the house, it had big white stains in it because he threw all the chemicals in
To
it
live
first.
with myself.
Then put the water in, so as they sat on the floor. And then he used to show up.
What kind of wine? Park it and be able to do it. I'm gonna park
Yeah.
it
Then he put the water in.
and I'm gonna
So the owner said, well, they gave us quite a discount, but it was the deepest pool. And he used to show up, George, he put that
when I got
little
into
cage,
Robbie,
it was
we'll
wooden,
park
with
it
just a little wire.
an RV park and
They weren't costly.
have the kids come
How he
on,
had it. But that was his trade.
roll around in the lakes, take the, James
And he
wants
used
to
to have
get
the
a
old
truck.
bus that was all spray painted colors. Because he put John Davis had an indoor pool at Celia. Man, indoor pool.
It's like that.
Huge. He had the whole edition up on the back of the house.
I'm not gonna do that.
It was a vet thing in his house. It's this.
Yeah, that's a different money.
Yeah, especially at our rate. But I did promise James I would let go of my cleaning lady. I'd be bargaining.
Oh, I see. That kind of surprised me.
She was
Gotta set your priorities, right?
Yeah. The sidewalk. She would have to go to work.
I have some friends that live in Malone. They used to live in Malone.
Oh, that's
They both retired and they sold
Yeah, the
their house.
dogs.
They bought a camper
Big heart.
and they travel
Yep.
mostly in the west.
Used to
They
know.
go to Arizona in the winter and Idaho in the summer. Because they have family in both locations. So,
Eventually,
Looking around, you see some of
his
these
stepson was
massive,
just in George's.
just one
just
Yeah.
married to
Yep. 18.
18.
Yeah.
So he's really small and lightweight. Yeah. I promised him.
Easy to connect the dots.
Park near golf course.
Ran into your mom.
I know, she said $25 a foot.
I made it
No,
sound so
4
funny.
feet, $100.
Just being
The
absolutely.
young one doesn't know that he
No
was
way.
outspent by $60, but he will someday.
Those things will become very important.
He'll know.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
That's great.
Doesn't matter what you like, as long as you're spending. Yep.
They don't come to the end of the anyway. Pressure's on.
Keep me
When
away.
you gonna do this plan for sure?
As soon as possible.
As soon as possible.
Did you just abscond with my?
Is that your pen?
That was
Sorry about
actually
that.
Colin's. I borrowed.
And then in the summer, they're no different. Did you give this to Josh?
Three more, and there's an 18% gratuity tax that I trade for a party of 6 or more.
Stop it.
Okay, I'll stop.
Then, no, nothing will ever beat that. No, he's done some other stuff too. Didn't you do something to Paul? What did you do to Paul?
Paul.
Oh, how soon you forget. Like he's dead, Paul O'Connell.
Oh, quite a lot,
You did something.
probably. I told him to quit texting me. Oh,
Yeah, we gotta keep it tight. Last week we started at 5:27. We should keep it right at 5:30. The whole Pittsburgh.
Still use it back.
Surprised they asked for the foil, or the executive last week. Or two. Oh, he's pretty hard.
Yesterday when I was in radiology, the guy who did the song would stand in his life.
Yeah. Oh, really?
City, their power doesn't matter, so they.
On this discussion, at least I saw an email to
No, I didn't have a comment, I don't know.
Okay, so this is an increase of $58,000.
To the balance budget. We'd have to ask
So that's a,
the chief. I thought it was a subtraction, wasn't it?
okay, we'll have to ask.
Yeah, no, I didn't have anything on that, maybe somebody else
You
did.
didn't? Wasn't it mine there? And that was, you could tell some people came in.
Decrease spending.
Yep.
They're very sensitive. Yeah, that's a good thing to do. That's a good thing to do. How much do they charge you? $1. Does that include the cup?
No,
I brought my own, I recycled it from last meeting.
okay.
That one, you can't grant.
What about this one?
No, but it tells you anything, there's lipstick on it.
That one's mine. Yes, so good. I do too.
His latest is, it might be one of his, because I like the one that. Whatever.
So, oh, yeah, the very much.
It's a team, too.
Oh, okay.
It's like he's totally losing it. Because he's so good. And every time he starts those interviews, he always puts on those pink
Oh,
glasses.
yeah. That's so good.
It just kills me. Yeah, I'd love to see him. I think he has a lovely voice.
See him on G-Boss.
That would be some cute.
Oh.
He'll pack the house.
Oh. I
His allies.
Okay. Okay.
Oh, he's so beautiful. People tweet me. You are the only fan without this. No, he's so good. And you know, this guy labored in the shadows, and then he sees an opportunity. And now he's so popular, he's known by everybody. Not that. Atmosphere. I hope he does.
Is it?
Yeah.
But we shall see.
weeks left and 3 different times.
If they're gonna trim it, they're not, because the season is, you know, because if you
Really?
don't hedge, because you
You better
don't trim it.
look over his shoulder.
1 more minute.
Oh, there are.
Oh, I know.
I know the excitement.
I missed me by.
What were you doing every week? What was doing at a memorial
Some chocolate
cemetery?
chip cookies with Ireland today.
One on Stetson.
I made kindergarten.
Did she like that?
She did.
Well,
That's a nice gathering.
Your grandmother did.
Oh, yeah, McDonald's.
Nothing wrong with chocolate chips.
Oh, I know.
I don't know if they always come.
Yeah.
I told myself today I was going to fast. So I did. I drink coffee all day. It's the only thing.
That's a good idea.
Little viper.
But still, I mean, you don't want to.
But I ate some of those lifesavers. Does that disqualify?
Yes.
Let us call to order the regular meeting of the Common Council of the City of Plattsburgh for September 7th, 2017. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Reed?
Present.
Counselor Armstrong?
Here.
Counselor Kelly?
Here.
Counselor Dowdle?
Here.
Counselor Ensel?
Here.
Counselor Casper?
Here.
Counselor Kretzer?
Here.
I'd like to begin just with a couple of short comments. First of all of you know this is the Battle of Plattsburgh weekend beginning today. There's about half a dozen events today, about a dozen tomorrow, another couple of dozen on Saturday, and about another dozen on Sunday. So make sure you can go to as many of them as you can. Go out and purchase a button if you'd like to support. There's a very good program that goes along with it. And Plattsburgh is going to be in its glory, and the weather's going to be perfect. Also tonight, we've really got only one resolution to deal with. I'm really impressed with the great progress that the council has made on this budget. Many of you know that at the beginning of the year, we had about a fund balance, about $800,000, in my perspective, dangerously low. And that fund balance has switched to a fund deficit of minus $400,000 we estimate by the end of the year. That's about a $1.2 million annual structural deficit we ran this year, as we've done for the last 5 years. Previously, we've gone from a structural fund balance of about $6.8 million to minus $0.4 million in 6 years. So this is about average, about $1.2 million of overspending per year. So the council in June set out determined to reverse this trend and actually start building up reserves again very, very slowly. To that end, with all their great work, I think we've seen about a $2 million reversal, or about 10% of the fund balance value. We've moved from a fund balance deficit of about minus $400,000 to one that's estimated to be about plus $400,000. That's an $800,000 swing. And at the same time, we've erased the $1.2 million structural deficit we faced for a number of years now. So it's amazing progress. I think we've got about $150,000 to go. We're going to have another budget hearing tonight. So we're still continuing to work on it, but the council, I have to give them the credit. They made amazing progress. Of course, it hasn't been out without a lot of pain. Restructuring is always incredibly painful. But nonetheless, I appreciate the sacrifices all made to try to turn this budget situation around. I'm just amazed at the progress, but I don't underestimate at all how difficult it's been. So having said that, we'll certainly be addressing those the resolution amendments momentarily, and I do encourage individuals to stay around for the budget hearing following this meeting as well. So continue, please.
Resolved that the minutes of the regular meeting of the Common Council held on August 31st, 2017 are approved and placed on file among the public records of the City Clerk's office.
Moved by Councilor Kretzer and second by Councilor Casper. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed.
Resolved that the payrolls of the various departments of the City of Plattsburgh for the week ending September 6, 2017 in the amount of $102,533.24 are authorized and allowed, and the mayor and the city clerk are hereby empowered and directed to sign warrants drawn on the city chamberlain for the payment thereof.
Moved by Councilor Ensel, second by Councilor Kelly. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed.
Resolved that the reports as listed are hereby ordered, received, and placed on file among the public records of the city clerk's office.
Moved by Councilor Armstrong and second by Councilor Dowell. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed.
Resolved that the bills audited by the common council for the week ending September 8, 2017 in the amount of $272,768.03 are authorized and allowed, and the mayor and city clerk are hereby authorized and directed to sign warrants drawn on the city chamberlain for the payment thereof.
Moved by Councilor Wenzel, second by Councilor Armstrong. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. This is an opportunity for the public to please come forward and address the council on any issues on the agenda. There will be another opportunity at the end of the meeting to discuss any issue you'd like to bring forth to the council. There is really only one agenda item tonight, so if you'd like to come and speak to these proposed budget amendments, please come forward at this time.
I'd like somebody else to talk for a change. I feel like I'm always the only one. Carol Klepper, 17 Couch. I am going to grab my glasses.
Whoops, you're not, Carol, the only one.
Okay. I'm really, really pleased, how hard the council and mayor worked on trying to work on reduction of expenses. I do know that the mayors met with the Clinton County Treasurer to try to see if there's something that we could do as a city to have the property taxes be under that office. I spoke briefly to her and she said I could speak to the meeting. I know that they spend approximately $11,000 maybe on school taxes for having somebody take care of the payments. Since we would be a 3-pay, system, and that's 4-pay installment, we could look at maybe spending $5,000, $6,000. One of the concerns I have is that we haven't been really tracking some of the amount of human resource time spent on a lot of the things that the city chamberlain's office does. And so I would think that would be a savings, but since we have nothing to compare to, it might be a good way to start by switching the duties. I still think that it's important if we're going to make this major move over from 6 Miller to this building, that we look at not having walk-in hours to try to reduce HR, the amount of manpower spent. And I ask that all the departments look at maybe record keeping. I don't know what's required by law about how long we have to keep records, but I don't know if it's 5 or 7 years. I know for taxes it's 7 years, but maybe if we can get that automated and reduce the amount of physical space we need for storage. But on some other notes, the amount that we spend as a city on overtime hours is deplorable. I think that that's a sign that the departments are not actually managing their human resources as efficiently as they could. And I would ask the city, if they're not looking at this right now, but to look at it for 2017 possibly, to see if we could look at trimming some of the OT that we're spending on overtime hours, because it's extremely excessive. The other thing that I thought that would be helpful is that, as I mentioned before, the building permits and for planning boards, we spend a lot of money on printing and costs related to bringing things in front of the boards for their review. And I think that it should be on the onus of the property owner or the developer to actually spend their own money for that cost. I think it would be difficult to build it into the application fee because it would vary depending on the project. But I think that we should definitely look at having that property owner be billed for all services related to get their approval, to get the board's approval to have that project go forward. And that would be for building permits too. I think that it would be nominal for residents to pay for the printing, I should say woman hours of actually disseminating the information to the rest of the board and getting that completed. And a lot of developers come 5, 6, 7 times in front of the board, And for each time, it should be under their cost, not the city's cost. I realize that we would benefit from the taxes, but it should be on their onus. The other thing that I thought of that would be helpful would be, I talked about it briefly, I know it would be incremental, but I think we should look at increasing in our zoning code the cost of fines for violations, like the noise ordinance, like parking, etc. I think that should be on the person that's actually committing the crime to actually be the one spending more money to try to discourage it and to bring more money into the city. I also don't know what the structure for the police department is, but I thought it would be helpful to maybe look at, are there any incentives to give tickets for cell phones and other things that might bring in some revenue? I think, I know the sheriff's department, I know that they have quotas. I don't know anything about the police department, so I'm not sure how that would work. And I think, going forward, I think we do need to look at some of the city property that we have that is draining the city, one of them being the Crate Center. I think that we might, consider selling that parcel, putting it back on the tax roll to generate income. And finally, although I have a lot more to say, I think that it's important to start thinking about creating not a surplus, but money in our funds so that we can look at capital expenditures in the future and have some money put aside. I know as a business person, 5–10% is normal to start building up so that we have something in, on hand in case we have unexpected expenditures. Thank you very much, and look forward to finding out what's going on with the community development.
Thank you.
Thanks, Carol.
Any other individuals like to come and address the resolution items? Seeing none, let's continue.
Resolved that the Common Council approves the following amendments to the Mayor's proposed budget for 2018. The Common Council is amending the 2018 Mayor's budget through increasing the general fund appropriations for general fund health care costs by $203,390 over the Mayor's budget based on the advice of the Key Bank Healthcare Administrators. The Common Council is amending the 2018 Mayor's budget through decreasing the general fund appropriations of $86,226 for police motor vehicles and IT vehicle expense by an appropriation decrease of $43,113, which allows for purchasing one new vehicle for 2018. The Common Council is amending the 2018 Mayor's budget through decreasing general fund appropriations for fire regular payroll and related payroll benefits by a combined appropriation decrease of $42,458, setting clerical support at part-time.
I'd like to make a motion to waive the reading and move the resolution. Sorry, Beth.
Moved by Councilor Kretzer and second by Councilor Renzel. All in favor of waiving the reading?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
I'm opposed. I would like to win.
It passes. Then discussion, please.
Okay, well, I would defer to the councilor who wants it read.
Could I suggest that as we discuss these items one by one, and I assume we will, that one of us can read them?
Would that
Would that
satisfy
be
you,
okay?
Councilor Dowdell?
I was thinking for the purpose of
The public.
kind of
That's why I didn't
listening
waive right
in.
away.
Right.
I'm fine with
I'm
continuing.
fine with continuing. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, Beth.
With the consensus, we can continue then. I think you're on number 4 now, aren't you?
The Common Council is amending the 2018 Mayor's budget through decreasing the general fund appropriations for debt service by an appropriation decrease of $228,865 for delaying the main road debt financing until the end of 2018. The Common Council is amending the 2018 Mayor's budget through decreasing sales tax estimated revenue by $50,000 using the county original projection for the city's revenue share. The Common Council is amending the 2018 Mayor's budget through decreasing the combined general fund appropriations of $3,412,998 for purchased materials and services by 5% for a total estimated appropriation decrease of $170,650. The expectation is to drive cost reductions through efficient and shared purchasing economies. The accounts to adjust need to be determined. The Common Council is amending the 2018 Mayor's budget by removing $239,959 in the system administration accounts and by making a transfer to non-general fund accounts in the amount of $23,959 for network services rendered to general fund users. Services and personnel will be reassigned to the technical units in the infrastructure division. The Common Council is amending the 2018 mayor's budget through increasing the three forfeit crime proceeds estimated revenue accounts by a combined $58,000 to balance to the budgeted appropriations for asset seizure reserve spending during 2018. The Common Council is amending the 2018 mayor's budget through decreasing the general fund appropriations for fire and police supplemental disability benefits by a combined appropriation decrease of $52,188 for the New York State COLA rate changes taking effect from September 2017 forward, and for the normal retirement age being reached in October 2017 by a disabled police retiree. The Common Council is amending the 2018 mayor's budget through increasing the general fund appropriations for finance office supplies and fire buildings and ground supplies for a combined estimated appropriation increase of $15,000 to continue to budget for these expenditures and correct them as budget input errors.
Motion to.
Thank you.
Councilor Armstrong, second by Councilor Ansel. Discussion, please.
I'd just like to point out to the council and the public that not all of this is good news. There are some significant reductions, but if you look at item number 1, talking with our healthcare consultant, we discover that perhaps we under budgeted for employee health care for next year. And that's an increase of $203,390.
And the reason for that, we actually did increase the healthcare budget substantially, and they recommended we increase it even more substantially in this case.
So
Go ahead.
that gets us to a total of, do we have that figure?
For the healthcare benefits, and $6 million, do you have that,
Is it
Chamberlain, Mark?
For the general fund,
It's just about 2/3 of that figure.
$1,256,000.
I hope that will inspire us to continue to work on ways to trim the healthcare expenses each year. And there have been a number of ways discussed to do that. I don't know which one is the best, but I hope that we can work together as a council, the mayor, Chamberlain, department heads, unions, and come up with a way to make that happen. That would be a huge savings to the city.
It would, and I distributed to you all a packet from last week from the healthcare administrators. They made some recommendations at our assistants to come up with ideas of what we could possibly do better next year. Some of them we are already anticipating doing. Others we've added to our list. Unfortunately, we have a list somebody grown today. Our list of things that we would like to explore is now up to 60, maybe about 70 once we include some of the new recommendations from the healthcare administrators. So that's a note of optimism that there are things that we really can explore. None of them are going to pan out immediately, but I think many of them we could try to put in place for next year and see with a few months' experience just what's that doing for the city.
Okay.
Who would have ever imagined that healthcare was so complicated?
We all live it every day, it seems like, so we have personal knowledge about it. And we have decreased our sales tax estimated revenue by $50,000, so that money had to be added back in as a negative. I think the number 10 is the same, $15,000. It actually increases our expenditures for next year. But when that's all said and done, we still, with all of these resolutions, we've managed to save over $500,000, and that's very impressive, and done in a short time and very efficiently. So my hat's off to the council for your hard work.
Thank
Can I ask on that? When we say $500,000, is that guaranteed savings? Or is
Well,
it
there's nothing
projected?
guaranteed, actually, the number is probably closer to 436,000 in the back of your sheet would say. So we have a little bit of work to do yet, and none of it's guaranteed, but I do think that as part of your 5-year budgeting exercise, we're starting to anticipate costs much more carefully, and we expect fewer surprises that we might have seen in the past. I mean, to be frank, I think every year the council thought they had a balanced budget at the beginning of the year and discovered by the end of the year is $1.2 million shortfall. We're really trying as best we can to make sure that doesn't happen and to be as conservative as we can. The easiest thing to do to make the numbers work is estimate revenue unreasonably. Hope that we have some sort of big revenue increase or some windfall from something. To be honest, I don't think there are elements of that in this nature. I think this is a careful and conservative budget. I hope to do whatever we can to beat this budget by the end of 2018. And hopefully this time next year we're going through this cycle again. I'm very much hopeful that we're not going to have the same burden to overcome. As you know, in your 5-year plan, it still slots out a further decrease of 1.2 million, 100 million, 1 million in permanent cuts and 0.2 million in temporary cuts next year as well. I'm very much hoping that some of those 60 or so items will make that exercise much less painful than it's been this year.
Okay, because the budget committee that started, we were getting reports. Was it every 2 months? Every 3 months? They were monthly.
Yes.
Things seem to be going well with that initially.
Yes.
Then, I don't know, I don't want to say it all fell apart, but I haven't. Can we reinvent that?
We're still doing that.
So we can track and cross-check, especially on the projected savings, to see where we're at as we go along.
Didn't I send that to you for August 31st?
As we go into the next year, I'm asking.
Oh yeah, we're doing it every month.
Okay. But
And the report has an analysis at the very end that shows you what we saved.
But of these,
Oh,
To track them
You'd like to
individually?
compare the reality of what we
Item
put
to
on
item.
paper here. That's a good exercise.
just to check our own homework, I suppose.
I think we should do that.
Idea behind that.
you mean make us accountable through measurement?
Is that what I mean? Is that what I mean?
idea.
Okay.
What a novel idea.
No, it can be done.
A couple of weeks ago, you did see a presentation sponsored by Councillor Armstrong on an overlay over our Munis reports that will give us much better and instantaneous budget reporting, and we do still want to do that. We're hopeful we can do it at maybe a lower cost through Munis directly, but we're exploring that in the options that Councillor Armstrong came up with, and I think there's another one that we're also continuing to explore. So I agree, we do need to be able to make data-driven decisions, and you can't manage it if you're not properly measuring it. Our resident Klepper said that we should explore moving collections for property taxes up to the county. We were having that discussion. Even if we didn't save much money from that, if we could free up our finance division to have more time to work on analysis and less time they'd have to devote to simple accounting and bookkeeping, we really believe that would be a real asset to the city. So we do think that that's helpful, and we do want to do much more of the analysis that you've been seeing more lately. The finance department is very much overworked right now because of this, and we're sensitive to that.
And number 8, can we just get a little clarification on that? Regarding the forfeit seizure money?
The spending for asset seizure doesn't come out of the general fund
Right.
operating budget. It
Right.
comes out of the asset seizure reserve.
Right.
So when the state requires us to put in what we're going to spend on the asset seizure, or from the asset seizure reserve, it's a requirement to include that. What we have to do for this budget process is make sure we offset that with a corresponding revenue item. So there's zero impact on that with the tax rate or on, the operational surplus or deficit of the general fund. It's one of those last items that I look at to make certain we have balance before we say we've got a budget. And I didn't get to do that. $58,000 more had to be added back to the revenue so that it didn't impact our surplus negatively. It doesn't affect the taxes that we have budgeted because we already set a number at $11,419,000 and said that was going to be a 4.74% levy increase by design. But this does change the surplus and adds $58,000 back to it because it's an item that can't reduce the operating expenses, or excuse me, the operational surplus from the general fund. It's a bookkeeping issue.
All right. Is that figure relatively consistent? This figure is 58,000.
The budgeted expenses for spending from the reserve for assets seizure was 109,000. On the other side of the equation, the police input was only 51,000 for the revenue, so I increased it.
Okay.
It's something I do every year.
Okay. Good.
Just to summarize, if we vote in the affirmative for these budget amendments, what we are saying is that we will deliver to the taxpayers a 2.46% tax increase for 2018.
On the mill rate, up per $1,000 of property value, correct?
Say that again, please.
That's per $1,000 of property value. The actual tax levy will increase by 4.35%.
Yes.
And the difference is that some properties became more valuable and other properties came on the tax roll, new properties.
Right.
But the average homeowner, for every $1,000 of property value, will see their tax bill go up by, was it $40 and $4.35, is that correct?
Yes, but these numbers have changed effective today. There was $2.3 million worth of assessment changes put through the 2017 tax roll. So that adds 0.25 to the tax rate, so it's going to be up to 2.71. Won't affect the levy, but it does affect the tax rate.
Okay.
We lost $2.3 million in assessed value.
Okay, and then I assume that changes our fund balance number also.
Right.
Is that correct?
No. No, it just changes the tax rate.
Okay.
The back page, the $951 million figure is going to go down by $2 million. So all it does is affect the tax rate, 2.71 from 2.46.
Okay.
That's all it does.
Richard, what does that change in assessed value represent as far as dollars?
If you didn't want it to happen, you have to save another $28,000 somewhere and put it into a reduction of the tax levy.
Okay, thank you.
If you want to recap and go back to June 1st, in our 5-year plan, we came up with a 2.85% proposed property tax rate increase and a fund balance of roughly $500,000. I can't remember the exact figure, but we came close. We came close. And I know that we want to deliver to the taxpayers the lowest possible rate we can, while preserving the fund balance, or growing the fund balance, I should say. So that's been the challenge, and that's sort of been the high wire act we've had to walk. And I think what I see here is pretty good success. I hope that for the remainder of the year, we can continue to look at the 2018 budget and continue to make cuts wherever we can. And perhaps even look closely at 2017 spending to see if there are some opportunities there reduce spending as well.
Let me
But-
correct one number too. That tax increase you actually see here would work out to 28.9 cents per $1,000 for households. And that's calculated by Chamberlain Marks already for you. You'll see that the second to last line. 28.9 cents per $1,000 will be the average increase for homeowners.
Okay.
Is that correct, Chamberlain Marks?
What was that?
The average homeowner will have an increase in taxes per $1,000 of 28.9 cents. Proposed
Yes,
tax
it'll
rate.
also change by 2.9 cents per thousand increase because of that assessed value change today.
Okay.
So you have to add 2.9 cents to, well, 0.029 to the 287,492. So it's gonna be up over 30 cents.
30 cents.
Yeah.
30 cents.
$31,642.
Oh.
Per thousand.
Okay.
So approximately $150,000, or home assessed at $150,000, we're looking at about a $45 increase,
Be about right.
approximately.
The average home price is around $150,000 for the city.
To some of us, that doesn't seem like a lot of money, but to some of our city residents, they're struggling to put food on the table and struggling to pay for medicines and other things like that. So $45 is a lot of money. And if that's the best we can do for now, then I think that's good. But let's not forget that there are many people who struggle every year to pay their taxes and to make ends meet. We should be an agent in helping people to do that rather than an agent in preventing people from doing that.
It also breaks down to less than $4 a month.
Yes. Yes.
I think the good news is that had you not gone through this exercise, you're looking at a tax increase about 10 times the scale, which would be close to $450. That is very, very sizable for those who are living on fixed income or renters. We have to remember that landlords pass all these tax increases off to renters immediately as well, and 2/3 of our residents in the city are renters who also bear this. We often forget that they bear their load as well. Any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Counselor Armstrong?
Yes.
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor Dowdle?
Yes.
Counselor Ensel?
Yes.
Counselor Casper?
Yes.
Counselor Kretzer?
Yes.
Passed. No travel requests at this time and no resolution for initial consideration. I believe you may have done council reports. Is there any other additional council reports or new business you'd like to raise at this time? Seeing none, this is another opportunity for individuals from the public to please come forward and address the council on any issues of mutual concern, please.
Well, I don't want to minimize the work done on the budget by the council. I know you all worked very hard, and I appreciate what has been done so far, but we really need to do better. We still have before this tax increase, our tax rate is 64% higher than the average municipality in New York State. So we have a ways to go. There are 6 more populous cities in New York State that have lower expenditures than Plattsburgh. So we have some goals to work towards. I hate it when somebody mentions or minimizes a tax increase. Yeah, I can afford it, so it's all cool. No, it's not. Most of these houses in Plattsburgh are rentals, and some people have millions of dollars worth of assets in real estate, and their taxes are gonna go up quite a bit. It increases my bottom line, it increases everybody's bottom line, and makes the city less attractive to businesses coming in. These higher taxes do not make the city more appealing to business or homeowners. It's unfortunate. I know that we're constantly looking for more revenues. We need to make the city of Plattsburgh more attractive to businesses coming in, because really that's where the tax dollars come from, or the biggest portion of them. If we want to keep increasing revenues and making this a more attractive place to live, we need to keep our taxes in line with other communities in New York State and continue to be under the tax cap. We're behind the curve right now. We need to get in front of the curve by lowering our taxes to a point where they are at least competitive with other places in the area. And along those lines too, I want to congratulate or give my appreciation to Councilors Ensel, Kelly, and Mayor Reed. We had formed this taxpayer advisory committee. They've helped form it, probably done more than anyone, and we need to continue along those lines to make Plattsburgh a more attractive place for people to want to live and to do business. And that's where we really win. Raising taxes above the tax cap isn't helping our case. So thanks for what you've done so far, and there's plenty of work to be done next time. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I won't talk on this if you're going to speak on it afterwards about the community development salary and its duties in relationship to the recreation department. So if you're going to speak to that afterwards, and I will mention it. Okay. I am a property owner, both residential and commercial, and obviously taxes directly impact me as well as other people. But I don't want the council to forget the big picture here. The residents and the people that run businesses are paying a little bit more in taxes, but we need to look towards short and long-term goals. I know that the town and other cities have city planners that work on fiscal analysis and cost analysis, and I don't see that really happening in our city, except for the responsibility of the mayor and the council. And I think that we need to look at a really systematic plan going forward, where we can have as much detailed information as possible for the positions that we've removed. The city engineer, we need to really see across the board how we've divided those and reassigned those duties, and how it's really costing us in total at the end. I have a fear that we're not going to see the real big picture of how that's impacting us in the future, both financially and with loss of service, or having the most efficient way of handling that. So I do look at that, but I know that the council and budget committee are also looking at having other revenue streams, and there are many assets in the city that I'm hoping that we can revitalize and work on. And one idea that the DRA came up with and some committee members was that there's a couple buildings along the waterfront. I think that's a real big asset, and I think that we should look at, maybe if the property owner doesn't want to sell it, maybe we should work with them on looking at what Montreal and other small cities do, with cooperatives inside the building, so that the owner is getting some revenue, but that we're generating some tourism and traffic and rehabbing that area. There's a parking area right adjacent to the two warehouses that are owned by the city, and I think that we need to maybe look at utilizing that and developing that waterfront to have us promote tourism down there. The other thing that I'm not sure where it stands now, I know it was in this year's budget, but of course it's not being able to be spent now, is that the Champlain Monument was slated for some repairs because of the seawall and stairs being under more than deteriorating condition. There's 2 or 3 that are completely gone. I've spoken to a couple different engineers and some people that actually do this as a profession, mason, And I would ask the council, I'm assuming that that 50,000 or what was ever slated, I don't see it in the budget. I'm assuming it was put by the wayside because we don't have the money. But that is an example of something that we need to look at for what can we do to mitigate further deterioration in the short term, and look at a 3 and a 5, 1, 3, 5-year plan so that we can prevent it from completely collapsing and get to the point that we have to either put brick back, which is not, you know, what's intended for that area, or spend an inordinate amount of money. So, and I understand that there might be some state funds available, but I do want to ask, I don't know if it's Becky I should speak to, but somebody on the council about how we can look at and trying to take care of that problem. And thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Any other individuals like to come address the council, please?
Hi, my name is Tammy Tremblay, and I am currently a city employee, for the time being anyway, as I work in the assessment office. I'm not a public speaker, nor someone who usually voices their opinions, but I felt compelled to speak to you all tonight. All my life, I've been a bury my head in the sand kind of person, feeling if the sky were to fall, I'm sure someone would let me know about it so that I can take cover. Well, when I got back from vacation in July, I was informed that the sky was in fact falling, as it looked like I would be losing my job again. I have been through this process once before with Wyeth closing, and I am sure I will survive. This is not about me. Since July, I have sat back and listened to all the scuttle about shared services and the county taking over the assessing duties of the city. When you look at the assessment office's 2017 budget, it is $135,402. The mayor's 2018 budget is $139,928. That is not a savings. As the councilors reviewed the mayor's proposed 2018 budget last week, the mayor stated that the average cost per parcel that the city is going to pay the county for assessment services is $25.50. What he may have failed to mention is that that is what they may be charging for services for 2018. However, is there any guarantee that the cost per parcel will not go up exponentially, as it looks like will be happening to other towns in the county in 2018? I recall the mayor stating that his budget would save the city approximately $68,000. This figure is based solely on anticipated health care and retirement benefits and FICA savings. The key word here is anticipated. I am here to tell you that no one has spoken to me to find out what my plans are for the future. That $68,000 savings will abruptly decline if Mrs. Livingston and I are not absorbed into the county as the anticipated plan requires. What if I choose not to transfer over to the county? There will be unemployment costs that will need to be deducted from that savings, not to mention grievance costs. And if Mrs. Livingston chooses to retire rather than transfer over to the county, you will still have to pay for her health care costs. So where are the savings at now? Do you know where your constituents will have to go for assessing, exemption filing, and other assessment-related questions? Are they going to have to go over to the county building for that now? Or will the office remain located within City Hall? Will there be a limited number of days or hours that there will actually be someone available to answer their concerns? And when Mrs. Smith has not been heard from for her aged exemption renewal, and the deadline to file is fast approaching, will the county go knocking on her door to ensure she doesn't lose this vitally important exemption? I can tell you that Mrs. Livingston has done so on numerous occasions, and the recipients of the exemption have been extremely grateful for her efforts. For some of them, losing their exemptions would make them have to choose between paying their taxes or putting food on the table. In closing, I ask you to carefully scrutinize the mayor's proposal of discontinuing city assessment services. Take a hard look at what the actual cost to the city will be versus the anticipated savings. Thank you.
Thank you, Tammy.
Thank you.
Any other individuals like to come and please address the council? Seeing none, do I have a motion to adjourn? Moved by Councilor Dowdell, second by Councilor Ansel. Roll call, please.
Counselor Armstrong?
Yes.
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor Dowdle?
Yes.
Counselor Ensel?
Yes.
Counselor Casper?
Yes.
Counselor Kretzer?
Yes.
Thank you all. If you'd like to stay for the budget hearing, we'll be continuing some of this discussion.
Mike.
Okay, let's do that. You have a, oh, I'm sorry, well,
That too. Asbestos.
Mike, I have to leave at 6:30 to be at work.
I have to leave around 2.
okay.
So you just have to come here for a.
Let's get started.
Do you mind signing?
There you go. Thanks for coming.
It's very interesting.
Thank you for coming.
How are you?
Semester off to a good start.
Remember last week I talked to you about the adjustments to water and sewer budget. I told you that the line items are problem.
Yes.
You got your sheets?
I do not. Show me.
See, water administration should be at 159,687. But your change is to 109. We took stuff out that we cut out of the budget. The total for water administration should be 271,169. Okay, let's continue on here. Now, this is transmission distribution, where the money should have been taken out, not water administration. So you see that 594, it should be actually 538.
Okay.
And then the total should be 875 to 931. So I just took it out of all line. The deduction is there. You can't take out of water administration, because that's going to cut out my employees' pay. Okay, so that's one. And then out of sanitary sewer administration, we had the same issue. Sewer administration, instead of 61,000, it should be 151,502, 292 instead of 204. And you go into sanitary sewer, that should be reduced from 594 to 565.
Okay.
Okay, you gotta put that in that.
Okay.
Okay, so get together with you.
Is Richard's aware of that one?
Richard knows about it. Richard and I had a discussion about it, but nothing.
How come it's not getting fixed?
Really? Okay. We'll fix it.
I just don't want to get over the year and have to come to you and say, I need money. You know what I mean?
Get it right.
We made a deduction, but we just took it out of the wrong line item.
It all-
Richard and I had a discussion.
It's all a wash, right, Mike, as far as the dollars go?
I just want to take the money out of the right line item where I made the deductions.
Does it all stay in the general fund?
It all stays-
Or the water sewer fund?
Just water and sewer. That's fine, but general fund is fine.
Okay. Okay. We'll work on it.
Point well
Thank
taken.
you.
Thanks, Mike.
Whoa.
Well, I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Plattsburgh City Council for a budget hearing. And this is on the heels of our successful passing of budget resolutions for this year to contribute to the budget. Greatly appreciate that. I'm sure the taxpayer will too. If I recall, where we left off last week was we needed to have a discussion about community development. Is that the only thing that we need to talk about tonight? Have we covered everything else?
Well, I do hope that we can still come up with about another $100,000 of cuts so you can get to your $500,000 threshold, or close to $150,000 of cuts so you can get to your 2.5% fund balance threshold. Now remember, your own policy says that you have to do immediate budget cutting if you go below 5% fund balance. So I think our work still is cut out for us.
We're already there, aren't we?
We're just trying to get to the surface of the water. We're not above water.
Okay.
Yeah, well, I would recommend that, Paul DiDomenicis come and speak to us about a proposal he has to, you're prepared to do that tonight, right? To make some adjustments to the mayor's budget. He has a proposal that would retain the events coordinator as a full-time position while at the same time reducing by $100,000 or so what we spend for events. So Paul, is that okay?
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
This is your meeting.
In speaking with the mayor and working on ways to keep the capacity for what the Community Development Office does in relation to events, and trying to figure out different ways to look at how events are held through the city, and doing some research around what other cities and larger cities are doing. I've proposed and worked with Mayor Reed and Councilor Armstrong to look at keeping the events coordinator position full-time for a few reasons. One, the amount of work to get the events to where they are right now, it's quite a big lift. So it's important from a capacity standpoint for events, and keeping them where they are is important to keep the position full-time. And secondary to that, with some of the changes that the council has in the restructuring has approved, and recreation potentially moving over to community development, I was looking at the events coordinator position to be able to absorb some of the coordination recreation programs, events. She works, currently that position works closely with recreation, so it was a extension of that. The proposal before you is based on conversations, conversations with the mayor and with Dean around how sponsorship works for the city, and how events are currently the way events are run. I believe this year's event budget was approximately $119,000 to be spent on Battle of Plattsburgh and Mayor's Cup primarily. Smaller events cost, not that it's insignificant, but compared to those two larger events are much reduced. So looked at other models. There's looking at the difference between a fundraising activity and a sponsorship activity. Be careful about what municipalities can and can't do, and looking at models, Schenectady County, Rochester, and Albany in particular, which are again larger than we are, and the models that they use around how they sponsor events. Much of what they do is not considered fundraising, but it really is allowing businesses to help support and partner with the city to put on events. Rochester, for example, holds about 30 events that are city events. They hold about 500 total across the city, but those are other organizations that run those. They work with sponsors to bring in funds to help offset the costs of those events for the residents. They are successful. They do spend some dollars out of the city budget for their events, but some of the cost is offset by sponsorship dollars. And so I'm proposing that the reduction in the events line was really to keep the capacity of the office within the position of the full-time position, but to still offset and show some savings, and try and work on a model that would allow that sponsorship to help remove the burden of the events from the general fund, essentially. We reduced it, significantly to try and offset that cost. In looking at, the budget as it's proposed, the halftime position with the each event line cut in about half, I believe, if I recall. A couple things that we've been thinking about, sponsorship to get us to the point, sort of to that halfway mark. But then we have models in place right now with Rotary, for example, where we have really looking at the mayor's idea of building capacity and partnerships to be able to help other organizations step up and do that as well. And I think fostering those relationships requires the amount of time and effort that a full-time position is required there. So essentially trying to look at different models to help continue the growth of events, from a community development standpoint, and they're important, as some of the residents have said as well who've spoken. We want to show that the city is vibrant and that we have a strong downtown, and our events do that. So really just trying to figure out a model that allows us to keep that capacity, but still realize some savings.
Paul, or I'm sorry.
There's a concern, and a kind of fine line that I think the mayor has tried to point out between solicitation and promoting sponsorship. So if you could provide an example of what this different model would look like in terms of that events coordinator's duties,
yep.
And how one can sidestep the issue of solicitation by the promotion of sponsorship. So what does that look like for an events coordinator to do?
Yeah, I mean, essentially, we as a municipality cannot go out and ask for money, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're not fundraising. We're not fundraising to replace dollars. Sponsorship is providing the opportunity to partner with a private entity to use the dollars that they provide. To sort of many companies have a community engagement kind of need philosophy that they want to do, and so this provides the opportunity to put. To connect them with the community, but it's not the event coordinator going out and asking. It's essentially setting this up. If you look at Albany and Rochester, it's sort of a passive presenting an opportunity for a company or a business to sponsor an event, but never, no fundraising letters go out, no ask happens.
Okay, can I just read from the from the Rochester page, just as an example? So they've got on their website, sponsorship of City of Rochester events. Since 1985, Rochester Events Network has provided hundreds of free or low-cost events to literally thousands of residents, etc. Community sponsorship makes good business sense. Event marketing can provide you with access to a diverse consumer base through cost-effective solutions that connect you with our audiences. It's Rochester Events Network has the ability to customize your corporate sponsorship investment to help you reach your brand's maximum potential through then advertising, public relations, print. I mean,
but what drives them to that site? How do they know to go to that website without being?
That's a good question. So, there's a certain amount of advertisement and public relations that would need to take place in order to make this system known to sponsors.
Correct. I spoke with, sorry.
No, I'm sorry.
I spoke with my counterpart in Rochester yesterday, just to kind of clarify. And it is, she said, the businesses are approaching the city and saying, what are the opportunities? Now, I realize that does take a little bit of promotion of the events, and they've been doing this since 1985, so they have there's a known track record there. So it's different than what we're used to, but it does allow them to do that. They sort of, it's that presentation of. So we would have to, in working with Mayor's Office and Dean, to making sure that we're doing what we're supposed to do. We're not trying to. We're trying to do the right thing on all sides of this here. So really, it's an evolution, and I know change is difficult, and that first year may not, there may be some bumps along the way, but really that capacity to be able to do that and help offset that cost is
Just a question, Paul. What would be the amount that what is the amount that we're saving between the full-time, not just salary, but also benefits and so on, between the salary, full-time to half-time?
Salary and benefits, probably about roughly $40,000, if I recall.
I think your number 110 included the salary savings compared to my budget that I'd offer.
If you move the position to part-time, if we move half the salary is about $21,000 savings, and then the benefits.
Benefits would be what? Richard?
30.
I'd have to look up the specific.
I mean, I'm just saying, I guess I'll just throw out a figure of between 40 and 50,000. Would that be?
The salary side. And then I'd propose to actually reduce the event spending by about another
Correct.
50 or 60, so that's where he came up with to try to calculate about $110,000 savings, another way to accomplish the
Correct.
same.
Well, that was my question. Is there any way that we can, I mean, I'm just looking at some of the expenditures from this past week for the BOP. Would there be a way that we could maybe even scale back some of the events? I mean, continue to hold the events, scale back the expense on them. I mean, for example, make the Battle of Plattsburgh a Friday night, Saturday event instead of a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday event.
I think
That we would see some savings. We wouldn't be spreading ourselves so thin, and it may be more meaningful, and you may be able to get
Well,
more.
I think there's a fine line. I mean, you know, there's what maybe incalculable value of bringing people into town over a period of time.
Chamber of Commerce, Visitors Bureau.
That's right, tourism in itself. So, I mean, I would hate to see the idea that we're trying to scale back an event that's taken how many years to grow to this point. But
But it's been scaled back from what it was, too. I mean, it was a 10-day event when it initiated, and now it's 4.
My point is that I think that what we're trying to work on is a way to increase the tourist impact by divesting ourselves of our own municipal costs to put on the event and attracting instead sponsors that would feel privileged to help put this on. So, you know, I think it would be a good idea for us all to take a look at the websites that Paul provided links to. I don't know if we've received those yet, but it would be a massive public relations effort in order to realize the savings that, you know.
And also a huge part of what Sandra does also is managing her social media. You know, and that's really a lot of the ways that people are being engaged nowadays is through Facebook and all of those social media platforms. So, you know, someone has to be able to do all that. And it's actually risen I think our visibility and how people perceive us, and also enabling us to engage people, to want to be involved. Just in our budget work session today, you know, we talked about the great work that Mike is doing and Peter with their committee and citizen engagement and all these volunteer opportunities, and using that platform as a way to continue to engage people. So, you know, that's also a big piece of this, is the social media and kind of projecting our image.
And I guess if I may speak to one of the 4 points of volunteerism that you had brought up, part of what Mayor Reed has started is really looking at increasing that volunteerism. As Councilor Casper said, it can be difficult. You know, I mean, there's a balance that you strike with volunteers, but we, through the events coordinator position, are trying to put together a volunteer program, municipal volunteer program. Again, you have to be careful with how that is set up, and we're utilizing Dean for that. So I think, you know, while part of the plan is this sponsorship idea, another part of the idea is to increase the capacity for us to make the connections with organizations like Rotary. I know we're revamping our local Lake City Local Development Corporation. Mm-hmm. Their capacity right now is quite small. I mean, we're trying to get things into compliance and get that back on track. But eventually, you know, they're another partner in this. So I think, you know, it's a multiple effort to really change the way that we are doing what we do. And you know, I guess my proposal is really it does hinge on our capacity to be able to continue the connections that are made, and currently that is through the events coordinator position. And I think that's what.
I have a
Could I
question.
offer how, what I was trying to accomplish and how it might transition into what he was trying to accomplish? My proposal was to actually make that a half-time position, but move it to an entity that wasn't constrained from the same fundraising limitations we were, like the LDC or some other entity. So that individual was able to go out and eyeball to eyeball, ask people for money on behalf of the events, not for the city, but on behalf of the events. And I felt that by doing it that way, they would be so much potentially more effective in bringing money into the events, that any reduction in event spending, I was proposing not to reduce it by the 90% you're proposing, but actually by half, that'd be made up for by additional leeway in raising those funds. And by the way, we do a lot of those solicitations in the form of, would you consider being a sponsor, without sitting at and addressing them one by one. So we do a lot of stuff that Rochester is doing. Now, to transition to your idea, if we could have somebody do it in-house, reduce the amount of event spending by that 92% as you're proposing, and have that person somehow be able to increase the level of sponsorships by that equal amount, I would consider that a success. And if you like, we could try it and see if we can make that model
That was actually going to be my suggestion. I'd be willing to at least roll the dice for a year to see
how we could up that game. We'd hope that it wouldn't impinge on the ability of the Rotaries, et cetera, to also fundraise, of course, too.
Agreed.
And if we could figure out some other way to find some money somewhere else to still keep within
But
the
this-
council's budget goals, that'd be even better. But I'm certainly to try it for a year.
I mean, the community groups have an advantage where they can actively go out and solicit, so I don't think it's going to impact their.
So,
I think.
but can we just, I see a few questions on the faces of public in the audience. What would the net impact on your budget be if we were to implement your proposal?
At this point, we're looking at just transferring where the cost savings would be.
So there
right?
would-
So there would be the full-time salary, and we would reduce
Right.
the same.
So it's just a different
it's
way of
different way
accounting for the money.
Accounting for the money.
Taking from one account and adding and keeping it to the other, essentially.
And it
right.
comes in line with yours?
Mine, the only
Yeah.
sacrifice, and that's what I would like to have this new proposal address, is that we've moved $110,000 of event spending to $10,000. So I would really be reluctant to not see any events because we have no money for them. If we can get that back from this individual's efforts back to 110,000, then I'd be happy. You'd all be happy. The events would be happy. That's kind of along your lines. We could try it for
But
you,
so
see if we can
there has
ratchet it
to
up.
be, what you're suggesting is that we need some way of guaranteeing or at least being accountable to raising at least that much money.
I have some questions.
Of course.
Do you have a list of potential sponsors?
We have people who have sponsored in the past. We have that list, and so we can look at that. And there are
Outside
people that
on the-
there are people that have we have banners hanging outside of City Hall.
Sponsored with dollars and cents?
Correct.
Okay, and it sounds like we would need about $90,000 in sponsorships to make up what we're
Additional sponsorships.
$90,000. Now, in your honest estimation, is that possible?
I think in a first year, it is a lofty goal. I think we can come close, but I can't guarantee anything, of course. So it is a chance that we would be taking this model. I think not only are we talking, I don't want to just think in terms of doing this through sponsorships, though. I do think that we have some models that we partner with, using the model that we partner with Rotary and the Mayor's Cup celebration, where they do some of the event and handle some of the event, and we do. I think we could work on those kinds of relationships as well. So I'm confident that those relationships could help leverage.
So would this change the event coordinator's job description then to include this sponsorship management, so to speak?
It changes the way it's done, I guess. It doesn't, it's currently part of has been part of the position since it was created, but just changes the way that message is brought out.
Okay, now this puts a lot of pressure on this person.
It does.
To produce.
It does.
So if this person doesn't produce, we might be within our scope to come back together in June of next year and say we're going to eliminate the position for the rest of the year.
Sure.
Would you be willing to take that chance?
I think we have to look at things, differently. I think we have to. So if it makes sense to the council to make this a part-time position, we will deal with that. I think we take a chance doing it this way, and if we have to revisit it, then we have to be willing to do that. So I guess to answer your question, yeah, if we have to revisit it, we will.
There's a certain amount of savings that was anticipated, and I don't know what it is off the top of my head, but if we haven't achieved that by June of next year, we would be within the council's scope to eliminate that position. Sure. Are you willing to take that chance?
I guess, yeah. I think, again, just if that's, yes, I guess we're willing to take that
But
chance.
we would be projecting that just for the.
For June.
For June. So, that's a target. We would have to come up with whatever the benchmark is that we feel is acceptable. And then that would give that person the ability to more concretely plan ahead and try to achieve that benchmark. But really and truly, this standard that we're setting up for this one position should be applied to every position. I don't think we can unfairly expect that this one position would have to prove itself by June without really expecting that of every position.
Right. And if I may just speak to the position and the capacity, I guess it's just trying to look at maintaining the capacity that we have to do what we've been doing. I realize it's different, but to bring it, in my opinion, to bring it down to part-time at this time has as much potential to adversely affect what we're doing.
That's right. Because what you've in part suggested is that the events coordinator can help with the facilitation and promotion of all the programs that now community development must manage from recreation. So there's increased demand on the community development office. So it seems kind of counterintuitive to be decreasing its capacity to achieve this service.
With the senior planner, remember, that was designed to take some time.
Okay.
Fair enough. Still.
And I have to apologize to everyone. I have a work obligation that has to take me away. But Paul, thank you so much for just some creative thinking and trying to preserve kind of necessary infrastructure.
Right.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry.
Good luck with the event tonight.
Thank you.
I also have to leave.
Okay. So what do we do then?
Good. Well, we can discuss some more. We can't take action.
Okay.
We don't have a quorum.
Well, so I don't know. Yeah, you go ahead.
I had one other concern, and that is, would the Mayor's Cup now become the Mayor's Cup with the sponsor's name in front of it?
Like it's presented with Rotary now.
Okay.
So similar.
Okay.
It's just it's exposure for the sponsor.
And the city's okay with that and has been that way for a while.
At least the Mayor's Cup and the presentation of that is a partnership with Rotary, and I guess
in any ad you see the sponsors that have lined themselves up.
So
yeah.
Again, it was another avenue to consider as we're looking at different ways of working what we do.
I think everything we discussed tonight, we've discussed with legal counsel, and we're comfortable at that point, so long as we don't have individuals going and asking on city's behalf to other individuals for money.
Yes. There should be a policy, maybe articulated very clearly.
Yeah.
I think it's a very interesting and exciting possibility, and
One concern I might have is we're looking for a guarantee, which is, tough to do. If by June we get that guarantee, and then we see how it's done, we've got the sponsors lined up, and it could probably run itself, then what happens to the position?
I think if it's succeeding and paying dividends, I think we'd be stupid to change it if it's really working.
But once
like
it's
that.
established and people continue to do what they do every year.
oh, so you're just saying in
What's-
terms of funding events?
Right, sponsorship.
Yeah, yeah.
Right, that,
Yeah, sponsor.
once it's all built and, once the little red hen
Does
makes that
that
loaf
make
of bread, what
that
happens to it?
position obsolete then, is what you're
Yes.
saying?
Has somebody built
Any,
themselves up for failure?
Personally, community development and development in general is built on relationships. So you maintain those relationships, they continue to grow. So it very much is a relationship
Because oftentimes it's
exercise.
But the thing is, who's to say that our events don't grow too? The number of events. I mean, if you look at Rochester sites, how many events was it? I don't know, 500.
30 or
So,
30.
so
They do 30 city events in
okay,
Rochester.
500.
500 is all the event applications and things that come in.
Right.
So, if we counted the events that other organizations put on, we put on about 10, the city. The sled and skate and
Yep.
the Irish Festival
Yep.
and Mayor's Cup.
holiday.
I think if all of our various city leaders in the various departments could each figure out a way that every year they figure out 10% more cool things than they did the previous year, 10% better job the previous year, they're always keeping themselves a job, right? It's never the status quo. It's always seeing how you can stretch and innovate, and so I think everybody's got a secure job if they continue to increase the level of value they create.
I had another question.
Of course.
Oh, in this position, is any of this work being done currently?
Yes, slightly different model, but we do have sponsors. Social media is there. It tends to be it's a little smaller in scope. So we would be looking at amplifying the kind of sponsorship we're looking for, not.
But it has been done, and it's been done successfully.
It has been.
Within the confines of that position.
Correct.
So we're going to expand it.
That's what we're looking to do.
Worth a try.
So this would just be a budget adjustment within the city, the community development, a reallocation of funds.
Yes,
right?
and the celebrations and Battle of Plattsburgh lines.
Right, and that's pretty straightforward and simple.
And we would, work with Chamberlain to make sure that sponsorship dollars are in a separate line.
So it wouldn't require any budget amendment.
So it doesn't there's nothing, right, it has, it's a separate item.
Yep.
Right.
And funds go in and come out.
That's a
of
good
that.
idea.
We worked with my total, so it doesn't change the
Right.
figures at this point.
Yep.
Correct.
Doesn't change the figures, but we do need a budget amendment.
Yeah,
That
maybe
we vote
because
on. We do?
sub-budget
Okay.
items,
Right.
I don't know.
Well, my question is, what are you changing?
You're,
Because it might make a difference.
Okay.
Saying you're reestablishing a full-time salary.
okay,
And
yeah.
full-time healthcare benefits.
right.
And, all of that implies. Because that changes the numbers pretty significantly.
So
If you go back
could
to
we
the
get a
timing-
report on the full impact of doing this then?
I would think so, yeah.
Yeah,
Any
thank
number
you.
of accounts to change.
I
Okay.
think, yeah, it's gonna change the number of accounts. It's not gonna change your bottom line figures, because he
Right.
generated it to make sure that was preserved, but it will change which accounts.
Yes.
So there are,
Well,
he's proposing to, as you recall, my proposal was to move to halftime for the payroll, so that reduced the payroll account. I also reduced the actual events cost by half, and then there was the benefits reduction.
healthcare
He's-
cost was eliminated completely.
Right.
Retirement was cut in half, and so was workers' compensation and disability.
So I think he's taking that to account. He's saying restore the benefits cost to those accounts, restore the payroll cost, but then reduce the actual events cost from 109,000 to about 10,000 to make up for that difference. So ends up being budget neutral, but yes, there are a number of accounts you have to change to accomplish that. If I understand everything
That
correctly.
was the proposal, yes.
Okay.
So if we could get that, those numbers, just to be official.
Details on this previously, so.
I can send you everything and make sure that my numbers were correct and
All right.
confirm that for the council. I can show you what I looked at.
Can work on an amendment for next week.
Okay.
Do we want to do this as part of the 2018 budget?
I would think.
Yeah.
So we want to, when we pass the budget, hopefully next week,
Yeah.
this will be in there. This change will be in there.
Will it
Right.
have to be a separate amendment before we, or, yeah?
So it'll be an amendment moving money between accounts. It's not going to change the bottom line on the second page. There'll be a series of items, move money from back to payroll account, back to benefits account, reduce the special events account.
Okay.
You know how to do all that, so.
So that will be the last of any changes?
Well, I hope we can still come up with more. As you know, you're about $400,000 to your $500,000 goal or your $550,000 goal if you want to stick to the 2.5% fund balance. So you do still have some work to do if you want to achieve those goals.
Well, we're going to keep working. There's no reason why we can't have a budget hearing every week between now and the end of the year if necessary.
But when are you going to adopt a formal budget?
Next week.
Yeah.
So then you're just talking about modifications and changes next year.
That would take place at early
If you
next
adopt
year.
the budget next week,
Right.
that dictates a tax warrant,
Right.
that dictates a budget resolution that says it's frozen.
Till January.
Yes.
And then you start doing budget modifications next year.
Which would be fine, so that would then start building your fund balance back up to a more manageable level.
Yes. And are there any opportunities to save money still in 2017? So that-
Some of the changes you've now approved are going to result in, we calculate about $100,000 savings in 2017 so far.
Good.
We're also
Thank you
tracking.
very much, Paul.
Thanks a lot,
Mr.
Paul.
Brody's concerns, Mike? What were Mr. Brody's concerns?
Mr. Brody's concerns were that in the water and sewer funds, some of the figures were in the wrong place. And he's talked to Mr. Marks about that, and we'll talk to him again, and we'll get that squared
I
away.
think Mr. Brody would like to meet with you and Mr. Marks and the mayor, yeah, to adjust those line items so we're right, because I had to make further adjustments to my budget by the change in structure of certain departments that we're looking
Okay.
at, so.
Right.
We can do that.
And I'd like to get it done before you finalize the budget, so the numbers are right.
Yes.
Those
Could we
numbers-
do that Monday?
I'm fine with Monday.
Will that work for everybody? Could we meet with Mr. Brody on Monday and hash out his issues with,
T&D, water administration, and sewer administration, and sanitary sewer.
should be pretty simple from what he showed us. Monday afternoon, would that be okay?
Sure. I'm fine with that.
And the anticipated direction of those numbers are,
I have it down. Richard and I briefly talked about it. I think it's just a matter of adjusting those line items. But we want to make sure, I want to make sure we're right.
It appears to be budget neutral.
I got my budget sheets here.
That's a good
Got
number.
a copy already, so we can look at it.
These are also not
It's our
general fund
mantra.
items.
Yeah.
They're
Right.
other funds.
Right. Still, it's important to get them right.
John Ruff also has some water and sewer and possibly general fund adjustments that he's still working with the mayor. So.
We have to
We should look
approve,
at that too. We made those adjustments already to our budget. I don't even know, I have another copy of another section, which I put those adjustments that John talked about in this already. So we can talk about that also.
Okay, I'll invite John.
Sure.
we have to approve a capital plan too.
Yeah.
And so that will have implications for the debt service, so when are we gonna do that?
No, I think we're in agreement of, we discussed last week to move Main Road to a ban for next year, given that the bulk of the work will be done next year. So Richard has already calculated the
Okay.
effect on the general fund, and it's been incorporated in the amendments you've already made. But I still think that you
The
should
main
take it-
road,
Yeah, I think
but
you should still look at the
we should.
capital plan, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that won't affect general fund this time around, but
No.
I still think
Okay.
we need to get on that exercise right away.
Good.
I agree.
So we still plan to pass our 2018 budget next Thursday, the 14th. Does that sound
Sounds like a
reasonable?
plan?
Of course, you don't have to say about the best laid plans.
No.
Okay.
One thing in mind, when you say that you're adopting a budget, that settles the tax warrant, and that
Yep.
settles the
Yep.
adoption of the budget resolution for 2018, and it's done. We don't change it again.
Right.
That establishes a tax rate.
You
and
can't go back on the tax rate and levy.
unless you're just gonna say you've got a draft, and keep it open, and keep on adjusting.
And if something unexpected should arise in the next 3 months,
Or else.
I mean, something
it's
negative.
settled, and then, budget amendments start January 1st.
Right.
Either way.
But until
I
then,
still recommend just pass a budget. Remember, the whole idea is to go down to Moody's and say, we've got a budget, we fixed this thing. We can't go down to Moody's and say, don't worry, guys, we're working on it, and expect them to look at us with a straight face and not raise or lower our rating. So we can still make amendments, and we can still adjust. Any changes we do are gonna affect the fund balance, they're not gonna affect the tax
No.
rate, is what you're saying.
I'm not gonna put any budget amendments in until we are in 2018. We'll be closing for the council to adopt.
Yes.
So I won't be changing the numbers in the system until 2018.
Correct.
You
That's
can't,
fine.
you can't, because you've got to issue a levy and a rate.
We'll
Yep.
have a tax warrant that indicates the taxes, so forth. We'll have to wait for the tax warrant, because the county, is an impact of that too. I have to know what their taxes are to pass a tax warrant for the city. But once we say we've got an adopted budget, our numbers don't change.
Okay. Except by budget amendment after January 1st. Okay. I would suggest we keep working on this, even after it's passed, keep discussing it, and keep looking for ways to streamline, save money, and increase revenue. We can do all that, and when January 1st comes, we may have a list of amendments already to approve.
60 of them.
60 of them.
that's what we got now.
100 and
And
what?
and
How many?
growing.
But I do think we need to create a safety net
Yep,
come January 1st.
absolutely.
Yes. We should offer the public an opportunity to come speak before we close the meeting.
Sorry. Listening to the plan for the community development, I'm really concerned. We need to treat some of these positions that generate revenue, maybe as a business model. I would ask the city council to think about keeping a part-time position, half-time, to avoid additional costs in healthcare, retirement benefits, et cetera. Maybe build in, if we can, some kind of commission stream, so that as they increase revenue for the city with sponsors and events, that they would get a percentage of commission maybe. I don't know how you want to work it. That to me sounds like a positive plan, win-win in every situation. We're talking about very strong budget cuts, and here we're asking to reinstate or put in a full-time position for community development. When we've cut a city engineer, we've cut the recreation department. When I look at the budget from, this is an old budget now, but when I look at community development, it's increased by 130% for the regular pay, from 111,142 in 2018 to 255,000.
Remember, those are two recreation employees.
I know, but what I'm saying is, I was gonna go to that. When we look at the recreation department, it was less salary, and now you're absorbing that. I don't see where we're having savings is what my concern is as a resident. We eliminated some positions in recreation and other departments to save money. And now a lot of that's absorbed in community development. So the position that you just spoke about, I think that a way to save money, generate revenue for the city, increase exposure, events, PR. We're going to talk about advertising with this kind of model. There's increased advertising and PR. I think that the city, this would be an alternative, that you could keep it as a part-time position, avoid the additional costs in healthcare, retirement benefits, which are great and they're just going to increase, and give them commission on what they generate. And that's one thought. The other thing I have a concern about is that the assessment office, you know, Kathy has, what, 27, how many? 23 years of experience. She does more than just assessments. I'm asking the city to see why she can't continue to do what she's doing, where the county would do a reassessment of the city properties. I wonder why Kathy can't do that. She has firsthand knowledge. It would probably be much quicker, cost the city less money to actually have her do the reassessment than to hire somebody from the county. I think we need to start looking at some of our assets. When you have city employees that are as long-term and committed as Kathy and some of the other positions like Mike, they're invaluable resources. I think we're, you know, chopping our head off trying to get money savings. In the end, I think it's going to cost us a lot more money. So I really think that we need to look before we cut and, you know, cut that string and make that commitment. I think we need to see in black and white how it would save us money to do some of these plans. I just don't think that they will. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other members of the public like to come forward and speak to us? Okay, seeing no one, I will adjourn this meeting. Thank you. Thank you.
Just about having a meeting tonight. We got through all the meeting today, but
Sure.
thanks. We'd love to hear from you.
I'll see if you want.
I can just bring the camera over here.
Whatever's best for you is fine with me. I can walk.
Camera, way to go.
Good story over the day. So you were the last picture. But how was that? If you figure out
So we can details from you and we'll be all set.
Do you know the drill on these? I don't know that Kathy would, I don't know how that would change her salary or whatever.
Sure, that's something for the my point is, you
As a
apply
county
to
operator.
doing so, we would have a worse level of services. I'm saying we're gonna have a good services.
So if you submit those two things as an amendment together, we can check it and make sure it's working. But those are not change the numbers overall. It should. But I just need a rough number, so.
You're saying her, Jordan is the third position, something similar with a wire saying. You will calculate it out at household perspective, benefits, et cetera, personally, and then how does it directly affect you?
Put that on. Okay.
This is my third term.
Commercial assessment would be 9 years, huh?
Well, third term. 6, 8,